Board of Health, and I am excited to be here with all of you today and our esteemed panelists. So I guess we'll go ahead. I know I wanted to introductions, but we'll let each of you talk a little bit more about your role, and we'll jump into the questions from there. So I think I'll start with Kofo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kofo Domingo. I am Vice President of Community Benefit Compliance and Procurement for Bedrock, LLC, which is one of the family of companies for Rock and Mortgage. In my role, the work that I do is to ensure that our team members within Bedrock understand our commitment and the culture to make sure that what we do is inclusive of the residents and the businesses for where we provide our services or we do work, our real estate development. And in that process, we have to sort of make sure that team members understand the commitment that we and how it how they are a part of making that commitment come true. So I work with a team of 4 other individuals to help me make sure that happens within Bedrock.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, my name is Riopelle. I am the Vice President of Procurement at SMART, and SMART is the Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transit. We are the mass transit provider in the Tri-County area. And in my role as the Vice President of Procurement, I lead a team of buyers and contract administrators to ensure that SMART has what it needs to deliver that safe and reliable service. And that's pretty much it.
Good morning. My name is Muschong. I'm with DT Energy. I'm part of a supplier diversity team. So it's supplier diversity, local spend, and small business. Of 2. So Courtney Stewart is my teammate, as well as we have a manager and director. We actually report up through our supply chain team, so we are directly connected with procurement. Our main goal in what we do is to advocate for diverse local and small businesses within our procurement spend. So basically, we go out, we work to understand the needs of what our procurement team needs, and find suppliers that meet that, or vice, flip that around, we won't find suppliers and connect them to our buyers. That's the basis of what we do every day.
Good morning, my name is Mike Lasley, and I'm with the Great Lakes Water Authority. My area of responsibility with the authority is anything vendor outreach, anything vendor related, vendor performance, vendor introduction calls that we conduct quite regularly, and we also get involved in any troubled contracts where we're having performance issues with select vendors. And we do have a diversity program. Jeanette is in the audience here. She heads up our Business Inclusion and Diversity Program, which I helped launch several years ago. So glad to be here today and look forward to interacting with all of you.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing a little bit about yourselves and what your roles are. If we could go a little bit deeper, right, into some of that we're going to have that translates to this audience today. Can you talk a little bit about some of your key responsibilities and typical workflow within your team and your organization that supports the purchasing process, and what role will you play in that? So going a little bit deeper on the first question or answer, and I'll start with Sean.
So the specific departments at SMART determine the need for specific product or service. At that point,
So you post your bids online, smart.
We do. We post our bids on BidNet, or MIN, the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network.
We also advertise. I think that's
Sounds like we're back up. Okay, so you were talking about your online posting process.
Yes. And we also advertise our solicitations and our procurements in the Michigan Chronicle.
Awesome, thank you. Dan, can you talk a little bit about DTE and the process workflow?
Certainly. Again, I do want to thank the EGC and everyone here for attending and allowing me to be part of this. So basically, one of the most critical things that we handle in our group is to understand the procurement needs. We're looking at not only what our procurement teams need right now, but what they need 5-10 years down the road, right? Because we're all about building relationships. So when we meet suppliers, we want to talk about not only what we're looking for now, but what we're looking for in the future. So that's a big part of it. We attend probably 30 events a year, and the goal there is to get out and meet suppliers like yourselves that are interested in doing business with DTE, that talk you through what we're looking for, if you fit with us, if you do, where do you fit with us, and then if that all comes together, get you in front of the buyer, right? Send you to a procurement professional. We do post our bids and our needs on our website, dtenergy.com/supply chain. So that gets updated monthly, so those are out there always. We also have a website that's great to see what we're doing in the future, dtecleanenergy.com. And that will list an integrated resource plan, which basically talks about what we're looking to do, all our investments in the next 5 to 10 years. And then I think basically the making sure once we make those connections, we're following up on that connection. And hopefully, as Sean said, it leads to an award of some spend with us, and if not, it's connecting with maybe to one of our partners.
Awesome, thank you, Dan. Kofo, can you talk a little bit about process at Bedrock?
Yes, thank you. So at Bedrock, coming through my procurement team is about almost $1 billion in procurement in a year. And with a small team, I start out with very experienced procurement managers. In fact, 2 of them are here. One just walked out, but Richard, say hi. So make sure you find them later. And I work with very experienced individuals because just like my counterparts have said, it is the teams who decide what they want to buy. We tell them and give them strategies to buy them. Joe, say hi. I was just talking about you. They came here to throw me off. And so experience is important. Dealing with them, and I need people who are very efficient at doing that as well. And so the teams will come to us and tell us what they want to be, what they want to buy, and we sit in those strategy meetings to help them, give them options as the best way to get to where they want to go in the fastest and the most efficient way. When they make that decision, we don't stop there. We give them resources to make it possible and make sure we're inclusive and thinking about the residents and the businesses of the city of Detroit that we work in. And so what that means is that we have a vendor list going. So we go out to events like this, we meet our community, we grow our vendor list, we also keep a registry. And so when those teams come to us, small or large, whatever it is they need, we also add to whatever list the team brings to us to make sure that it is competitive, because at the end of the day, we're looking for the best value for our money, but we can also meet all of those policies. And so they'll give us their list, we'll add our list to it. And then in addition to that, so those people will get emails from us that say, We have an opportunity here at Bedrock that we seem to match. But what we do, working with community programs like BuyDetroit, is we will host on their boards. And so we will partner around the city to business-focused, small business support groups to say, here we have something that we think could work, could you post it on your board? And then there will be guidelines and instructions as to what to do in order to turn in a proposal. That's how we do it.
Thank you, Kofo. So what I'm hearing is it's important to get into your registries. They are not a black hole, if you will. I think it's important to kind of talk about that too, in the sense that just because someone's putting their information in, maybe there's a contract that just, got launched for that service and it's in a 3-year term, right? So you may have to wait. Can you talk a little bit just about that registry piece and how important that is in keeping information updated? I can just stay on that bit.
Okay, great. We ask for key information like leads and your website. So we tend to update before we shoot things out. If you have a change, especially in who your lead person is, to take that information first, because sometimes it's not just you are doing too much, so you've assigned someone. They leave your business, make sure you update your list with us, or wherever, or check the board, right? BuyDetroit's board, we want you to go in, participate in that program. I forget what that board is called. The BuyDetroit
Procurement portal?
Yes, thank you. Procurement portal. Make sure you go in regularly so you can see what we're posting, because we will post there in addition to the other. And I hope that helps.
Yes, that did help. Anybody else want to speak to their supplier registry? Michael?
And we use a system formerly called On Fire, it's now called Unit Procurement. It's linked right to our website. It's self-service, it's free to register. You go and put your information in there, you select the commodity codes or services, products that you sell. When we list a solicitation, our buyers do the same match. When there's a match, get an email to take a look at the opportunity. So it's all self-service right off our main website.
Awesome. Thank you. While you got the mic, Michael, this next question is actually for you around how your organization's strategic initiatives really help identify what you focus on from a purchasing perspective. So what would you say are the primary values, goals, and strategic initiatives that shape your organization's purchasing priorities, and how does that influence your procurement decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as a public entity, our process is extremely transparent. When you register on our unit procurement system, you also are signing up to get our monthly newsletter. And that newsletter is a very quick read. It's 2 pages. The first page gives some tips and tricks about what's going on at GLWA procurement. The flip side of that gives a 9-month lookout of all the solicitations that we say are coming down the pipe. So we give advance notice 9 months in advance of our opportunities. I think we're one of the few public entities that gives that much insight into the procurement process. A lot of our projects are extremely large. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So it requires the vendors to prepare, to build a team potentially of subcontractors. A lot of our projects, again, require a prime and many subs to perform the work. Subcontractors bring specialized services, proprietary services maybe that prime doesn't have. So it's extremely important to have advance notice of those projects. So once the solicitation is issued, the buyer becomes your main point of contact. All communications go through that one buyer. We don't want people calling project managers or engineers. Goes directly to the buyer. Those solicitations typically have a pre-proposal or pre-bid meeting. We strongly encourage participation in those. That's a great way to network with other vendors, get your name out there, provide your services to other prime contractors and vice versa. Attendance is taken at those meetings, that list is published, addendums are issued, and so it's a great way again to network, communicate with other prime vendors. That's the easiest way in the door at GLWA, is to get involved with one of our projects, get your name out there, get connected with one of our prime contractors. Another good piece of information, we produce an annual report that lists every dollar that we spend and who that contractor was that got those dollars. So it's right in our website, gives a wealth of information about all the procurements that we've had at GLWA.
Awesome, thank you, Michael. So we're going to shift the conversation a little bit to really the RFQ and RFP process, or how to secure the bag, which I think everybody wants to understand a little bit better. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about that. And Dan, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us what are some essential components of your RFP or RFQ process? And can you discuss any significant changes to the structure or the process in recent years?
Sure. So for DTE, obviously manufacturers go into a bid. Some of the most important for anybody bidding on these is to remember that scope is understanding the scope, understanding what we're looking for is the hottest thing you can have. It really impresses the buyer when they get the proposals. So just that you have an understanding of what we're looking for, when we need it, the experience we're looking for, how we're looking for it, right? That type of thing. It really helps both you and the buyer to make sure that it's the right connection for the job. The next couple of things would be, for DT especially, safety is number one. We're going to ask it. We want to know everything about safety in your program, your business, right? That you are a safe business and that you have programs in place that you're tracking to be a safe business. Sustainability is another hot one. Obviously, anything green, we're looking for your company to be very involved with keeping a sustainable organization. And lastly, continuous improvement. Always looking for something you might have been doing today that you've learned to do it better, more efficiently, which will provide a better product or service for DTE. As far as changes go, we have been using, and just for everybody's knowledge, DTE uses for a lot of their bids a platform called Wood Mackenzie. It used to be called Power Advocate. So when you do get invited to a bid, you get invited through this platform. It can be very regimented, very strict on how your information is coming in. So keep that in mind if you ever are bidding on something that we're doing. And if you have questions, the connection point, as we talked earlier, the connection point is that buyer. So if you have any questions or concerns about how the bid's going in, how I should be submitting the bid, what the scope is, there's an area in that platform to ask questions and ask as many as you can. That's the key. Make sure you're clear on what those questions you have are, get them in front of the buyer, get an answer, so you're getting a fair shot at getting the bid.
Awesome, thank you, Dan. Sean.
Just to piggyback a little bit on what he said there, safety is key with us as well. Ensuring that our suppliers are able to meet our safety needs and requirements. And the best way to do that is to show us in your responses to these RFPs and RFQs your safety record, ensure that you have the proper insurance requirements that's spelled out in our solicitations, and then also come to those pre-bid meetings that Michael mentioned earlier. A lot of times those bids are obviously discussed in depth there, and solicitations are discussed in depth there, so you're able to ask those questions, and you're able to come and really show, put your best foot forward in those responses.
Thank you. Kofo or Michael, anything you want to speak to about your RFP process?
I think it's pretty similar in some scopes, some of our more formal ones. Let me preface by saying at Bedrock, we are property manager as well as a real estate developer. And so in that effort, we could have activations in our building that require florists or caterer, events that require caterer, and we could be expecting someone to help us build a $1 billion building. So we span the whole thing. And so for some of our more informal give you a time, give you information, and ask you to give us the quote by a certain time. In the more formal ones, when it's over 30,000 and in the million, then we're going the same route as everybody else. RFP with guidelines, with information, with formats for how we want the proposal to be delivered, what your minimum qualifications are. All of that detail will be in every page of the RFP, as in many pages as it is. every single page is important. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. So, as we think about the RFP process, you and your team are reviewing lots of proposals on the project. Can you talk about some of the common mistakes or challenges that you see suppliers make in their proposals, and how can they avoid some of these pitfalls?
I think some of the most challenging, I've been in procurement for over 20 years. I was in government before I came to private, so I've seen a lot. The most common mistakes, especially speaking to this group, is reading the document and making sure you meet the qualifications. Asking for a caterer doesn't mean just start putting numbers on there. They're asking for specifics. They're asking for capability. Are you capable of handling 500? Are you capable of handling? The one thing about bids when it comes to large companies is they are very competitive. Don't think it is only the small businesses that are going for it. The largest companies in the world are also bidding against you. So you have to come in with your best foot. What that means is not all of us are capable of putting our proposals together, or don't want to, or have the time. But proposals do require time and effort. And so you need to understand that every time you go, assume that for someone who is bidding, it's a do or die moment. They're giving it all. Are you capable of competing? Are you meeting every aspect of the scope of work? And sometimes you don't have to do it all. Sometimes you get to come with partners to be able to form a team to meet the complete scope. But you need to understand that, because no one wants to hire someone so that they can learn on their job. We're looking for people who will not only come in, master the job we've got, and add value, so we can call them on another day. I'll leave the rest of it.
Thank you. Sean. Thank you, Kofo.
Excellent answer. Just exactly what Kofo said. Read the procurement document or the solicitation thoroughly. Make sure you're meeting our minimum qualifications. Come to those pre-bid meetings. Ask questions. As Michael mentioned earlier, you have a contact, that buyer or that procurement agent. Reach out to them with any questions you have. And like Kofo said, make sure you read every page, every sentence of that solicitation document, because before we award the contract, we certainly do our homework to make sure that we're going to get the best value from awarding that contract.
Yeah, I'd like to just say ditto, because it's really the exact same thing. I think the biggest concern or mistake that we probably see, and I was in purchasing for many years prior to coming to this role, is just not following through on the instructions that the buyers put out. And that doesn't mean it's going to be the same with every buyer. Depending on what you're bidding on, all buyers are different, but they're pretty clear on what they're looking for. And then especially if it gets in that power advocate platform, they're looking exactly for, if they want pricing on certain things a certain way, that's what they're looking for. A lot of times if it doesn't come in that way, they don't always have the time to go back and actually reset, right? It's going to be, this is what I'm looking for. I've got 20 bids I'm looking at. I don't have time for one to go back and figure it out. Scope of work, obviously, and I understand that. With those two areas, though, I would again emphasize that what Kofo and Sean said, like said earlier, ask questions. Don't feel, I know sometimes time is limited, but take the time to get that question in at least, or at least explain, maybe you've got some confusion on what they're looking for. And then lastly, I think the comprehensive proposal, right? That proposal should have everything that they're looking for and some. I would always recommend, you want to see, when I talk to suppliers at all our events, you want to see the buyer's eyes pop, right? So you're giving them everything that they're looking for, and then if you can add a little value add there too, right? Even though it may be separate from your original proposal, give them a little more that tells them that you got some real good ideas and innovations that you might go forward to them.
Thanks, Dan. Anything you'd like to add, Michael?
No, just, again, echoing what Dave said. We ask for bid bonds, we ask for performance bonds. Those are part of insurance. Those are part of what's required to be submitted at the time the bids are due. The other thing is, unfortunately, our bid due date is a firm, solid number and time. If our due bids are due at noon, if you log in at 12:01, it's unforgiving. If you are late, it's not going to accept it. So please factor in that your computer's not going to work, that there's going to be some issue. Get the bids put in the day before so that you can have a rest of the night before the bid. Don't wait for the last minute. We've had too many situations where 60% of the bid was uploaded and a new game and it's gone. We can't accept a partial bid. Also, the bids are directly submitted into our procurement portal, unit procurement bonfire. They don't go directly to the buyer, they go into the system. So that's very, very important.
It's a non-clinical sourcing team, so I have responsibility for working with teams who are bidding products and services. And when I say reading the RFP, it sounds so basic. It really does, and I don't think the intent, or in fact, I know the intent is not to be insulting, but I think we're saying that from a perspective of we've read so many proposals where it's obvious in those instances that the bidders did not read the proposals all the way through, or that they didn't answer the question that was posed. As Dan mentioned, we'd love for you to submit additional value add, but minimally, you have to answer the question that's posed before you're providing additional value add opportunities. And then, of course, paying attention to detail. I'll share a story. We were going out to bid for marketing and branding services. This was years ago. And there was a bidder who submitted a proposal that said Henry Ford Health Systems. We were never Henry Ford Health Systems with an S. There was no S in the end of the system. Today we're Henry Ford Health, we've completely dropped the system. But at that time, we were still Henry Ford Health System. And I bring that up because the first question from our teammate was, they're going to do our branding, but they don't know our name. They want to do our branding, but they don't know our name. For something as simple as adding an S, because nowhere in the bid or the RFP did they see an S on the end of the word system. So I said, pay attention to the details in the proposals as you're submitting them, and of course, responding to the questions. So, thank you guys. Okay, so, criteria. So what's going into the actual RFP or RFQ? So, Michael, I'm going to start with you on this one. What specific criteria does your organization consider when evaluating the feasibility of subcontracting within a contract?
So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our projects are extremely large, very complex. Our work is not easy. A lot of our work is below the ground. You don't see what we're doing. And so we require a lot of the primes, they have to have subcontractors. They cannot get the job done without subcontractors. A lot of our equipment is proprietary, requires a limited competition in some of those areas. We're very specific about the types of equipment that we require for standardization reasons, training reasons. So it's extremely important that you meet all those requirements within the solicitation so that you know it can comply with those requirements. The other thing that was mentioned earlier, we are being much more regimented about experience and qualifications. I know this doesn't sound nice. We don't want you learning on our time. You know, we can't afford to have a project fail. We don't get a second chance at it. So we want to make sure that when we contract with you, that you are going to be successful. We want you to be successful because that means we're going to be successful in the completion of the project. So make sure that when you do step up to the table that you've got the resources, you've got the right team, you've got the experience, and you've got the qualifications to get the job done right the first time.
Thank you. And Kofo, want to speak to criteria, Bedrock?
Sure. One of the first things, criteria I look for when people are subcontracting is if it makes sense. And so, just like you said, the scope of work, does it make sense to break it down to individual businesses? And then what we look for is experience. And so what I encourage is that if you're bringing on a partner, make sure they add value. They're not taking away. Minimum qualifications matter. Sometimes you may have some qualifications, but you need partners to fulfill the others. So not only do they fulfill that qualification, you want them to bring value to the team as well. So we're looking for that. Something that's already been mentioned, especially on some of our larger projects, is risk. So sometimes we have those jobs that if you break them apart, it either makes it more risky or handing some sort of work to someone makes it more risky. So for those of you in construction or some of the more complex projects, you need to think about that. We're always going to give you the insurance requirements. And so making sure you have partners who can help with that or fulfill that is important. And one of the last things that I know is important is cohesiveness. Remember I said we don't want someone who's going to learn on the job, so we're not partners. We don't want you to learn each other on our job either. And so we're looking for partners we've worked with already. We love to see that you've done multiple, you can basically trust that, because when you are a prime and you bring on subcontractors, whatever subcontractor he does, it's on your name. And so you need to be aware of that. And so it won't be, oh, I'm sorry, subcontractor C is the one at fault. It's going to be prime brought this person on, trusted their name, and so the brand of both of you are out of sync. So those would be some of the things that we talk about.
Thank you. So if we can stay there a little bit, I know we talked about criteria, but take us to the point in which you and or the users that you're supporting are evaluating these proposals and really considering some of those critical factors that are going to be decision makers for you. You've got finalists that are really neck and neck in the process. So can you speak to some of the factors that you consider when you're deciding who to work with? I know we all think it's price, and that's a big part of it, but that's not all of it. So can you talk to some of the factors that you're considering when you're narrowing that down to your selected vendor, and are there specific attributes or compliance issues that are non-negotiables for your respective organization?
I think I'd like to start by saying that when a company contracts, we contract because we are able to do the work ourselves, we're not qualified to do the work ourselves, or we have too much work, so we need to bring on others. And so when your contractor is an extension of you. So when we come down to it, it's personal. That person is who's going to represent me. That's very key. And remember I said we're not just looking for someone who can do a great job. You can also do value because it means that next time I need that person, I don't have to go through this whole process. I have somebody who's really good that I can call on again. And I think when we come down to neck and neck, that's where it is. Who can I trust? Who has shown themselves to be me an extension of me? And so our process is not just you submitting the proposal. When we do interviews on the large jobs, it's because we want to see who wrote the proposal. We want to make sure you wrote the proposal in this world of today especially. and you kind of get it, and we're looking at you eye to eye, are you an extension of me? Do you look like you can communicate and do the work that I expect you to do? I'm very valued, because I always want to badge on my back when I'm done with the project. So do I have the right team for that? And I think when you start there and put yourself in the place of the person hiring you, that's always helped me as well.
Thank you, Kofo. Sean?
Yes, just Kofo said, not only submitting that proposal that includes the bid bonds and the performance bonds, your financial records that we ask for in our solicitations, but we're also going to ask for references. We reach out to those references when we make sure that you completed the proper work for them and you were a good standard for them. We also ask for many of the larger jobs to show us some of your bodies of work to ensure that you're able to complete the type of work that you had. And that's really important that you show us that because, as Dan said earlier, those buyers and those evaluation teams that are looking at these proposals, they're looking at numerous proposals for each job. So it's important to show us exactly what you're capable of.
Thank you. And DTE?
Yes, very much the same, and more of it. I think DTE, as a new vendor, DTE, a new supplier, you'd be going through a pretty detailed pre-qualification process. It does depend on the type of work, services, materials you're providing to us, but it can be detailed. As Sean had mentioned, financials, insurance requirements, obviously you mentioned safety again. And basically that goes through a review before you're pulled in as a supplier of DTE. So keep that in mind. A lot of times that if you're invited to a bid or if we get on a bid, that will happen prior to the bid happening or at the same time, just so we know that you're a viable bidder. But I can't stress enough, I think, as far as critical factors, safety, I just keep going back to that. I know that some smaller businesses may not have a lot of the documentation we look for from larger businesses, but even if you're going to be working for a prime as a subcontractor to DTE, or subcontractor to a prime to DTE on the project, they're going to be looking for things like OSHA logs, your OSHA rates, your DMR rates, programs, manuals, that type of thing. Mentioned insurance requirements, I guess lastly, relevant experience. A lot of that letting us know that you are able to do the work, as Michael said, able to do work, and whether you're working for us or our prime, and have been successful, and will bring some value with you as well.
Thank you. Michael?
The other thing that's critically important is we want to know the background of the team that you're bringing forward. We want to see their resumes, we want to see their experience. Because again, they're going to be the ones that are going to be basically representing our organization and completing that work. So don't propose the 18 and show up with the B team either. If you're proposing the 18, show up with the 18. So that's very, very critical to the process as well.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's say you have secured the bag. You've been awarded the contract after submitting your proposal. I wonder from the panelists here on some of the common challenges that suppliers encounter in fulfilling contracts and share some strategies on how they can collaborate effectively with each of your organizations to overcome these obstacles. I'll start with you, Sean.
I would say one of the more common challenges is obviously a supplier can't meet their deadline and their needs, and the most important thing is to be transparent with us. Reach out to your project manager and your assigned procurement administrator to ensure that we're on the same page and we can figure out a fix if possible. And I know that in this day and age, prices are changing constantly with tariffs and things like those lines. So keeping those line of communications only, don't be silent, and reach out to us as soon as possible.
Thank you. Kofo.
I think some of the challenges that people have after they get the bid is in the excitement of getting the bid, when you get the legal contracting and codifying what you have just won, excuse me, is us just signing whatever anyone gives to us. I think it's important as businesses because what we do is we will list our expectations. We should write it in our bids, but we also will transfer it into our contracts. And so not just you qualifying for a bid, understand the expectations and your ability and your capability to meet them. Because that's where the challenges start. When we say we want something yesterday, and you understand that internally, even some of the approval systems we have built will not allow you to meet that deadline. That's giving you something that's very simple. And so you're already setting yourself up for failure. If I have 5 people who's going to approve your work, but I want it all done by yesterday. So some of those things are not possible. So paying attention to expectations to limit the amount of challenges that you could have. And just like Sean said, sometimes even then things will happen. But the minute you are aware, remember you are an extension of me, and I know that problems will occur. I know that some of those problems we will create, or we just happen just because it's unforeseen. Communication and talking it out and bringing it to the forefront as soon as you see it is the most important thing. At least as a project person, that's what I would expect. But challenges we expect all the time.
Awesome. Thank you. And if I could just add on to that too, Kofo, something that you said is really important is when we're going out to market is usually because it's in an area or product or service that we can't perform or manufacture ourselves or we don't have the capacity to manage it internally. So we are looking for partners that are also going to help us mitigate risk. And so I say that to say, and I think Michael mentioned this earlier too, that challenges or issues I've seen come up personally is suppliers who overpromise and underdeliver. They're very excited to get the contract, but not able to meet some of the obligations of that. And so now what that has done is that's put your organization at risk and also mine, because you're my partner, and as Kofo stated, representing our organization. So I don't encourage anyone to do that in an attempt to get the business. You got to be able to make sure that you can manage it, you can cover your own operational costs to be able to carry out the requirements of that contract, but be very honest and transparent about what you can do and what you cannot do. There have been instances where we've had suppliers submit bids and we've actually looked at the suppliers and said, well, hey, they can do this and they can do that. Maybe they can partner and collaborate, right? But that's because of the transparency in their proposals where we were able to identify gaps where we could possibly recommend other suppliers that could be subcontractors or potential partners. So that's very, very important, the ability to be able to meet those obligations to us and to your own organization internally as you're supporting us. Anything else that you want to add to that question before I move on to the last one? Okay. All right, so from your experience, and this is for Michael and Dan, what are the best practices for local suppliers to build strong, lasting relationships with your organization?
So I think you heard a lot of it already. Honesty, transparency, communication, huge. Be honest with this is what you can do. Obviously, be honest with your pricing and your scope. We want to see exactly what you offer right at the front and to see if you're doing work for us, right? The same thing we expect. Ask questions. If you do bid on something and you don't get it, it's fair to call that buyer up and ask them to do a post-bid discussion. They're not going to explain, they're not going to tell you where your pricing was versus their rate, but you might get some information on what you might have missed. Maybe safety was missing or your insurance requirement wasn't where it was needed, right? But it's important to get that feedback. Can't tell you how many companies I've dealt with that have gotten that feedback and had made the next step to the very next bid, right? So very important. Periodic check-ins with the buyer. Once you establish a relationship, now buyers jump all the time, so that's the other question you gotta ask is you might be talking to a buyer that's handling our plumbing services one day and then he's in left go the next, right? But you can still reach out to myself and our group to find out who the buyer is you should be speaking to. But through that relationship, make sure you're checking in with advancements in your company, things that you've done. Maybe you hired a bunch of new people, maybe you've gone in a different direction, maybe you've got a big client that you hadn't had before. And the same thing with us, keep an eye on what we're doing. If you can go to a buyer and say, hey, I see you're doing this type of work, and it's exactly what we have done in the past, and here's what we think we can do for you, and you value with it, right? That's just a conversation. That's fantastic. You keep up with the buyer that way. That's great. Be willing to be a tier 2. Be willing to work for our clients as a subcontractor. A lot of times, if you're not, if the bid isn't matched with you perfectly, be honest, understand that, explain that, and say, hey, is there a subcontractor or a client that I might be able to work with? Can you introduce? And I think the last thing is we always look for suppliers that are giving back to the community because we do the same, so we look for that as well.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I echo exactly what Dan said. I think communication is fundamental to all of that. Excuse me. We don't want to be surprised by anything. This, Sean mentioned tariffs. It's kind of a difficult word in the current world. We issue a purchase order and, a couple weeks later, I can't have that price. We'll work with you on that. We need to see the documentation to support what's going on. We need you to validate the price increase. It can't just be a verbal. We're going to need to see documentation to support that. And we're going to work with you. But don't, a year into a pump order, it's supposed to be here in 18 months, tell me, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. We need to be able to pivot sometimes as well. So we may go to a different supplier or change the spec, but communicate with the buyer, communicate with the project manager. Again, we don't like surprises.
Awesome, thank you, Michael. Okay, so I think that wraps up our questions, Lauren. I don't know how much time we have for Q&A from the audience. Do we have any questions? I see this young lady has a question here.
Good morning. Thank you for you guys' time and overview. Chanel Destiny Design was looking, or I didn't hear about maybe a minimal certification, or is there any minimum certification, especially in lighting industry or supporting the lighting?
Our Business Inclusion Diversity Program, we encourage certification, and again, depending on the funding source, we might require certification, but each solicitation is unique and it will be spelled out if that is required or not.
Yeah, I would second that. Same thing. It basically would be explained in whatever the bid or the requirement is.
Thank you. You have a question?
Thank you.
Stating that outsourcing and also servicing any problems you may have for that on the top, bringing on the
You're welcome. Okay, anyone else? Okay, lady.
Hi, my name is Keita Richardson. My company is Overall Construction. And I know, especially with the water board, your bonding is like, for my company at this time, very large. But my question is to all. You said about teaming up with a prime contractor. How would like a company such as mine be able to team up with a prime contractor? Would it be part of your portal and you link us to them? Or how does that work?
So in our system, Procurement, you can see who's downloaded the proposal, and you can identify those primes. You don't just do a Google search who they are. Again, attending those 3-day meetings, pre-proposal meetings, you get to introduce yourself. We take attendance, we've done share that attendance list with everybody. It's about getting exposure, getting your name out there, and making that connection. That's really what it's on. It's kind of like a matchmaker thing. We talk about matchmaking all the time, but that's really what it's all about.
Also, I'm going to suggest taking advantage of any networking opportunities that come with bids, Q&A, pre-proposal meetings, etc. If you are not qualified to be a prime, but you could do some of the work, go to those meetings, because especially even when they're virtual, in person or virtual, they make an opportunity for you to introduce your business and your expertise, so you get to introduce yourself. So that has been very effective. That way they're looking at you eye to eye. They can literally give you like an on-spot interview. And then there are some of the larger construction companies that some have the training programs. I know like Turner and some of the other ones, and all of that they do is a community benefit, but at the end of the day, they're trying to find subcontractors as well. So any opportunity to link up with bigger businesses, someone who's done a lot more than you have, is an opportunity, because like us, they are now looking for subcontractors they can pull on multiple contracts. So that's always good. So networking is huge.
Thank you, Kofo. Okay, Lauren, I think with that, we'll